Welcome to the Hockey Hub, Sophia Jurksztowicz and Kasey Hudson for another episode. Kasey, round 2 of the postseason officially done. We're into the conference final, so we're obviously going to be touching that. But some big storylines, some really sad and, depending on what side you're on, that is. But of course, some touching moments and some big moments from the weekend that we've got to discuss. We're going to get into all that. But as usual, we like to start our show with a guest, and we always have Bruins hockey to talk about, even if they're not in the postseason. So we're going to welcome in Jim McBride, beat writer for the Boston Bruins, writing for the Boston Globe. Jim, thank you so much for being on our show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you've, you and I did the last Western long road trip together for the Boston Bruins, and I was just kind of getting back into the season, but a bit of a long one, a bit of a, different kind of articles you were writing probably than you were used to over the last few seasons.
Yeah, that was kind of the final nail in the coffin, if you will, of the season. They started out in San Jose, lost that game, or in Vegas, lost a tough game there, and then it just really went downhill. They were kind of non-competitive after that. But a few funny things that happened on that trip. Charlie McAvoy came back to practice. That was newsworthy. I spoke to Cam Neely about his thoughts on the season during that trip. So while the results weren't there for the fans, it was a pretty eventful trip.
It definitely was. And like you said, it kind of started to unravel there. But with the trade deadline, there was just so many storylines with the Boston Bruins. And we kind of just want to start there to get some clarification, because as we know, the captain, Brad Marchand, traded to the Florida Panthers for this conditional first-round pick. And I think on surface level, if you're just reading the headlines and the couple lines, it's like, oh, okay, if the Florida Panthers advance to the conference final, they get that pick. But that's not true. There's just a couple more details. So can you clarify what those are for the Bruins to get that first round pick?
Yeah, so that first condition they met, right? They had to win 2 series, the Panthers, and they wrapped that up last night. The second condition is Brad has to play in half of their playoff games, which seems like a no-brainer, but there is a possibility that, if he gets hurt, or if if the Panthers get swept, or they don't play as many games, that could turn back into a second-round draft pick. But right now, it kind of feels like the way he's playing and the way they're going, that 2027 first-round pick seems like a lock, although technically, they still have to meet that second condition.
At least it seems pretty hopeful. I was asking my producer about it, Jim, but do we think that there's a chance that 50% requirement changes if the Panthers end up going to the Stanley Cup final? Because, of course, that moves the marker, right?
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think health is the big issue, right? If he stays healthy, I don't think Paul Maurice takes him out of that lineup no matter what, because he's a proven playoff performer, and he's really fit in with this group of Panthers, seamlessly. Even though he has said when he first got there, it wasn't the greatest adjustment for him. But I think clearly later on in the regular season and now the playoffs, where he's always thrived, you're going to have a hard time getting him out of that lineup, barring injury.
Yeah, he has been rolling, and I know, especially you, whereas with Ness and I can kind of have a little bit of fandom going on, but I know you're supposed to say neutral, but it's definitely been fun to watch him roll and enjoy it, and obviously well-deserved, because that was emotional for both sides, and looks like he's enjoying the ride so far.
Yeah, I was interested watching last night. I wanted to see the handshake hug between Carlo and Marchand, because I know they played together for a long time. They had a very good relationship. They used to banter back and forth on the ice at practice, in the locker room. So hard not to feel the heartstrings pulling a little for both those guys. But that was kind of an emotional moment, and I'm sure they'll both look back on it with friendliness, and kind of, they knew one of them wasn't going to be moving on.
I feel like it's kind of an out-of-body experience for them to see each other in those opposing uniforms after just, a month or some change ago being in the same sweater. Sophia, were you going to add to that?
No, I was just going to say, this is a topic that's evergreen, and we can discuss it anytime, but I was just talking about the handshake line with some friends. It's just my favorite tradition in sports history, and we don't have to get into it here, but obviously when the Mark Scheifele news came out, I was watching that handshake line, and it was obviously very emotional, but it's just that tradition in sports and hockey, I absolutely love it, and it's so classy. And again, I can talk about this for 20 minutes, so we won't digress. But I was looking for that as well to see how they hugged it out. And then, not trying to be funny here because poor Brandon Carlo, but brutal to be, Florida haunts you for a couple seasons. While you're with the Bruins, you get traded to a team that Florida's got their number as well, and you've got to suffer through that in 2 uniforms. So not an easy thing to swallow for Brandon Carlo.
Yeah, definitely in that building too. With the Maple Leafs have, this was his chance to kind of, change their luck. And there's old friend Brad Marchand doing it again to the Maple Leafs. So tough one for him, I'm sure. But he had a nice ride. He really did after playing on a team that was clearly not going to the postseason this year.
Yeah.
There was definitely a lot of emotions in this Game 7 for a number of reasons. But on the other spectrum of things, you've got Mitch Marner. We probably saw the most emotion out of him last night when he tried to rally his team after going down by 3 goals. And that's also a name that's being kicked around a lot in terms of potentially, being on the market and being a target for the Boston Bruins. We got Pete Blackburn's opinion on him being a fit here and maybe not being a fit. But what's your opinion on it, Jim? Would you want to see this guy in a Bruins sweater?
Yeah, I think he fills a lot of needs. He's a scorer, but he also plays in all situations. He quarterbacks the power play, and that's something the Bruins could use. I know Mason Lohrei is probably growing into that role right now, but Mitch is established in that, and he's also an elite penalty killer. So I think he checks a lot of boxes. The one box I don't know if he checks is max contract. You saw Leon Draisaitl getting, $14 million last year. I don't think that, Mitch should command that kind of money. He's going to want that kind of money. I don't know that the Bruins are going to want to pay that kind of money, but a team coming off, a season in which they underachieved and they didn't make the playoffs, they may have to overpay him. So maybe they do reach and give him more than maybe he would have gotten in another year. But as far as fit, I see him playing, fitting into Boston and filling a lot of roles. People will point to the playoffs and the lack of production there, but he's one of the reasons why they got there. And when the Leafs were rolling against the Senators and in those first 2 games against the Panthers, he was really noticeable. And much like the rest of that team, he kind of disappeared, over the last 5 games of that series. But I think he'd be a perfect fit in Boston.
I like your take. I completely agree that I would not pay max money. And I mean, like you said, he's going to want that. One of the conversations or the feelings I've had about him over the last few years, Jim, I don't know if you know, but I'm originally from Toronto. So all my family and friends, we're always texting and talking about fits and so on and so forth, and the difference between the cultures in the room. When I first came to Boston, I covered the Toronto Maple Leafs from a different capacity, but covered them for about 10, 15 years, and was very, very, very noticeable how different the culture was in Boston. I use air quotes because when I first got here, I thought that's just a stereotype or this is just, whatever. But it's very real. It's very real how different it was in Boston, led by Zdeno Chara when I came. And we saw a little bit of that kind of begin to slip this season. And that's something that Don Sweeney addressed. That's something that David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy addressed to make sure that doesn't happen. Anyway, bit of a tangent there, but I want to bring Mitch Marner into that. I feel like my only concern also would be coming from that kind of a locker room, coming from a place where they really are these, like, he used this quote himself, seen as gods, so to speak. There's a little bit of, I don't want to use the word cockiness, but there's just a different air with the superstars in Toronto than there is in Boston. And I'll just say, I like how Boston handles it better. Do you think he would be good in the room? Like if Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand and what they established were still at the helm, I think Mitch Marner would learn a lot and would need to learn a lot. What about now? Do you think that kind of a personality coming from Toronto, max money, would fit into the room?
Yeah, I think so. I think the with Pastrnak still there and Charlie McAvoy there, they're going to have those lessons that they learned from Chara and Patrice Bergeron and even Brad to a certain extent. So I think the locker room has done a good job of welcoming guys. You look at Elias Lindholm last year, Zadorov last year. They came in and they fit in pretty well in the locker room because that culture was there. I think it'll still be there. I think, Kasey, you mentioned it earlier about seeing Mitch Marner emotional during that second period last night. That was really the first I've seen him that way. Now, I don't cover them, so I don't see him on the daily basis like I do the Bruins, but that was kind of good to see because I think that's the kind of emotion you need to play in Boston. And that's the kind of leadership that they're going to need in this locker room going forward because, a lot of the leadership has gone because of that trade deadline. They lost Marchand. Charlie Coyle was a leader in that locker room. Brandon Collar was a leader in that locker room. They're gone, even though they didn't wear the C. And even Trent Frederick, to a certain extent, quiet guy, but had been in the locker room for a long time. So that's another area where I think Marner could come in and play a big role if he wants to step up and show that, that he can be a leader off the ice.
Yeah, and a big contributing factor to that is obviously the culture of a locker room, but also, the guy at the helm, the leader, and your coach. So depending on the characteristics that are established and fueled by a coach, you can kind of see different elements of a player. You can see a different attitude of a player. I know a lot of Boston fans are just kind of a little reserved here because of sometimes the lack of emotion and then the postseason numbers, as you mentioned. That just brings me to a key question. What are some key characteristics we need to see out of the next head coach? Because you're going to have an interesting blend in this locker room of younger players still kind of curtailing their game, some guys finding their leadership vocality, but you're going to need somebody who knows who they are so that they can really establish the identity moving forward.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing at the NHL level coaching now is communication with the players. You can't come in and just lay down the law and walk out and not take the players' feedback. I think communication is so important, especially with this era of players, that they need to know you're the boss, but they also need to know they can go to you and lean on you when they need to. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that coaches need. And that's why I think, former players have been, very successful because they see it from both sides. They've been a player, now they're a coach, so they know how to walk that line, and that's a fine line.
Okay, wait, you mentioned former players, and so we kind of want to take it there in terms of candidates or who would you like to see. There were obviously a lot of rumors ever since the Bruins were eliminated from the postseason. A couple coaches got scooped up pretty quickly. But what do you think about a Marco Sturm or a Marc Savard in that before we get to some of the other possible candidates in that role?
Yeah, I think Marco Sturm has done, a really good job at the AHL level. He was assistant with the Kings. I think Bruins fans remember him as a very emotional player, and he came over to Boston in kind of a tough situation because he was part of that Joe Thornton trade, which was not a popular trade among this fan base. But he kind of endeared himself to the fans because he was very emotional, scored some big goals for them. I think the biggest feather in his coaching cap is leading Germany to a silver medal in the Olympics. I mean, that's not a country you normally think of as a hockey power. So for him to do that is pretty good. And I think he's proven that he can win at the AHL level. Is he ready to make the big step forward? That's going to be the big question that has to be answered.
I think some of the things that I found cool about the conversations around Marco Sturm's name is the fact that he does harness a competitiveness, but he's very big on relationship. He's very big on connectivity. And you mentioned that communication is probably going to be a key factor moving forward. But, Sophia also mentioned Savard, and that's something else that I've seen in the comments a lot about fans being like, I'm all here for Savard. Any thoughts on him in the fit?
Yeah, another emotional guy too. Like he played here. Unfortunately, his career was cut short by concussions. But another guy that's can be relatable to players because he played and he knows this market really well. He was a big signing at the same time that the Zdeno Chara came in. Peter Chiarelli brought two big guns in there, and they had a lot of big wins. So I know. Nikita Zadorov has talked about Marc Savard. He coached him in Vancouver, and he's really liked him. So I think he's another guy that can be very relatable to the modern day player.
What about internally? We have Ryan Mougenel, obviously Joe Sacco, Jay Leach. Do you think the Bruins or how highly do you think they're considering internal, or are they looking for a fresher, I guess, voice? And if you were Don Sweeney, would you consider those candidates?
Yeah, I definitely would consider them. I think the fact that they haven't moved forward with them at this point, and they're all available, like there's not a playoff series or something waiting, is probably not good news for the internal candidates like Joe Sacco and Jay Leach and Ryan, as you mentioned. I think if they were, kind of hell bent on having one of those guys get promoted, it might have happened by now. So I get the feeling that they're looking for someone from outside the organization to come in and kind of put his stamp on this team.
It feels like the fresh face is kind of starting to drive the conversation. Elliot Friedman said over the weekend that the Bruins have interviewed roughly 15 guys from what he was hearing. Two of the guys on that list are from the Tampa Bay Lightning, which was my former coverage team. You got Jeff Blashill as well as Halpern in the mix. I liked Halpern because I feel like everyone loves little connectivities between Don Sweeney as well as the potential next head coach. Both of these guys, previous Ivy Leaguers, went to the same prep school out in New Hampshire. Both played for the Dallas Stars different times. They're a decade apart. But is there any new name or fresh face that might be jumping around a little bit more to your brain?
Yeah, I think Misha Donskov, who's the assistant coach with the Dallas Stars right now, is kind of if I was a betting man, he would be the guy I think that the Bruins really like. And, talking about drawing parallels, he was an assistant coach for the Team Canada in the Four Nations face-off, which Sweeney was a general manager of. And Don had mentioned when we talked to him on lottery night that there was definitely guys that were still in the playoffs that he was looking to talk to. This guy has a really strong reputation as a one-on-one teacher. He's high on analytics, which I think he started the analytics departments with the Vegas Knights when he was with them. They were very successful. The Stars are obviously very successful this year. Now they're in the Western Conference Finals. He's kind of a name that's under the radar, but I think that drawing those parallels with Sweeney, he would be my guess as the guy that they're kind of targeting, because it's been quiet, and it's been quiet because he's still in the playoffs, and they really haven't been able to make any announcements or have a lot of rumors kind of circulate, because I think the Dallas staff has probably stayed buttoned down because they've got a task at hand.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you, not to put you on the spot, but the technicality, can you be talking to an assistant coach while they're in the postseason for a future job? Is that allowed?
Yeah, I think it is. I know in the NFL, which I covered for a long time, there are certain dates when teams are still in the playoffs, like the Monday after, the season, and like the Monday after the first round of the playoffs. There's that window. I would imagine there's that window for the NHL. I don't know for certain, but I think there's got to be a gentleman's agreement that, if you have a highly coveted assistant on your staff, he's going to be, talking to other teams. So there's probably that window. I'm not sure what it is, but as you mentioned, Elliot Friedman had said that it's 15 candidates, and it's hard to believe that of those 15, there's not at least a handful that are still in the playoffs that that are trying to win or were in the playoffs at some point.
No, exactly. And sorry, Kasey, if I can just jump in really quick. I don't know Misha myself, but from even people in the office who've worked for him, we have someone on our staff who worked for the Golden Knights, and people who know of him really say that in terms of personalities, you mentioned one of your first things is they've got to be communicative with the players, that he's like a very approachable, very person forward and like communication forward guy. So that adds to the green flags that we're looking for.
Oh, yeah. Well, and continuing on the green flags, as you mentioned with the conversation and the connection, is there anyone that stands out to you? Like if you were able to wear the GM hat, who would be the top coach that kind of fits the bill for you from all the 15 potentially considered?
Yeah, I think Donskov is kind of the guy that I would want to take a chance on. Reading a lot about him during the Four Nations, he connected with a lot of those players quickly. He talked about in one story I read that players say he knows how to break things down in a short window. Like, here's our opponent tonight. This is what we need to do. Here's a few clips. Let's go execute. So I think he's got that kind of mix between relatable, but also like kind of data driven. So he's kind of the jock geek combination, and I think that's something that's really appealing at this time.
Jim, I'm going to go back to the Bruins season really quick. You write a lot of good stories, a lot of good articles. Anything from you this season, some work that you would like to highlight that whether you got close with someone, getting their backstory, like we said, we saw a lot of turnover, a lot of crazy storylines. What was one of your favorite elements or maybe articles that you put out in terms of coverage this season?
Yeah, I think Jeremy Swayman's kind of was an interesting guy this year because my first season on the beat last year, he had such a great run. He made the All-Star team, and he was kind of really on cloud nine. And this past year, it was different for him. So I think getting to know him on a personal level was kind of important for a lot of the stories that I got to write about him and about the team because. He's one of these guys that really kind of maintains the team line, the team focus when he's talking to us. But deep down, there's a fire burning that he wants to clarify that the contract situation didn't affect his play. And I think we saw at the end of the season that he kind of came out of that shell a little bit to say that some of that did kind of affect the way the season started. And I just appreciated his honesty and really in general the hockey guys and the Bruins guys in general they're really honest and it's very refreshing.
Yeah, I was just going to really quickly ask, and then we'll let you go after this, unless, Kasey, you have another question. But I got to coverage in small doses. Baseball, never really football up in Canada, not the NFL at least. But baseball, basketball, hockey, and then even like skiing and snowboarding, swimming, and not being biased and tennis, and I love tennis. It's actually my favorite sport. Hockey players I just find the best and easiest to interview, and like you said, really honest. What's your experience been like with NHLers?
Yeah, so I covered the Patriots in the NFL for 8 seasons before I switched over, and those guys can be temperamental. They're front and center when things are going well. Not so much when the team struggled. And that's one thing I really found refreshing and appreciated a lot in the Bruins locker room and the NHL in general. Those guys know you have a job to do, and win or lose, they're front and center. And you ask to speak with them, and they're always courteous with their time and generous with their time. And I just appreciate that. And there's really no punches hold. They come out and they give you honest answers, and that's really all you can ask for. And it makes the stories better, and the fans benefit from that too.
Agreed. Jim, thank you so much for your time, your insight, clarifying a couple things for us. And maybe we'll have you back on once a coaching decision is made, because the offseason is going to be a busy one for the Boston Bruins, especially after or as of July 1st. So I'm excited to see where the direction of this team goes. And of course, like we said, at the helm. So we'll have you back on again. Thank you so much for joining our show. In the meantime, guys, we're going to send it to break, and Kasey and I will be back to discuss the conference finals after this. All right, welcome back to the Hockey Hub. We had Jim McBride on earlier. Right now, Sophia and Kasey back with you, looking ahead, looking back. We're going to start with looking back. I was so looking forward to this Game 7, and it stunk. Like, it was the least entertaining. I thought it would be way better in terms of entertainment and excitement and competitiveness and what's the word I'm looking for? At least keep it interesting. 2 goals apart at one point for what I think less than a minute, or just over a minute. They were 2 goals apart, but the Panthers, and we're talking Panthers Leafs obviously over here. The Panthers just dominated the Leafs. The Leafs they weren't terrible. It was the Panthers were just better, and then it just kind of fell apart. But yeah, that was not what I wanted out of a Game 7. What did you make of it? I was so upset that it wasn't entertaining to me.
Yeah, I was hoping that some of that Game 6 energy was going to replicate itself, copy and paste to Game 7. It was kind of a tale of two periods at first. First period, you thought we might get an interesting game. Things were pretty neck and neck after the first 5 minutes of the Panthers being ridiculously dominating. But you said it. It was the Panthers just being better. And I think that as a series moved along, we all talked about the fact of like, all right, Panthers maybe didn't play their best hockey in the first 2 games. They were able to get back to their form. And as soon as they did that, it just kind of felt like this series was a wrap. But I think we all had it going to 7 games, but I am right there with you, Sophia. I was just hoping for a lot more entertainment, a much closer game, maybe even overtime. I'm sure that was asking too much, but you want to know the funniest part about all of it is the second that the tweet went out that Drake bet on the Maple Leafs, all in, $1 million on the money line, everybody just started congratulating the Panthers right away. And I was like, holy crap, this curse is so bad.
It's bad. It's real. Like my chats were blown up about the curse. One of my friends is like, it's maybe because I'm watching, and I'm like, I think the curse goes beyond your power here. It's like I'm on both sides. Like being from there, it is. It's like they're, first of all, not making the playoffs for X amount of years, then not being able to get out of the first round, which they finally have a couple times in the last few years. And then there's not making it to the conference finals. But a couple of things on that note. The NHL is hard. Like, you're not supposed to be able to make it to the conference finals every season because only 4 teams do that. And so for that to be like the barometer, it's like, okay, relax. Like, the Bruins haven't, they did obviously in 2019, but it's not like you're expected to do that. I don't know what it is about Toronto. Maybe it's just the way they lose. Maybe it's like these blowouts or flubs or dumb mistakes or the Stars not being Stars. It's just kind of this like, here we go again thing. And I feel like if they lost in overtime or they came back being down 3 and it was 4-3 at the end of the day and they still lost, it's just a different narrative because Brad Marchand said it himself. This is a different team. And I struggled so hard saying it because I'd heard that, like, that is one of the jokes in Toronto, the running jokes. It's like, it's different this year. We're different this year. So I hesitate saying that. I don't like when people say it. I don't like hearing it. But it actually did feel different, and maybe not different enough where it's like, okay, the cup's theirs or whatever. The conference finals are guaranteed. But something was different. It's just, it was same old Toronto in game 7, and that's what you can't escape. Like you said, the memes, the curse, the jokes, this and that. I don't know what it is. I don't know why they were
I was
flat.
going to ask, is this superstition? Is it false hope? What is it?
I don't know. I think if they knew, they would spend $100 million trying to figure it out. Like, if they could find the answer. And one of the big ones was like this. They brought in a long time ago now, Brendan Shanahan, but to change the culture. And that was a problem. Like the Phaneuf era, the Phil Kessel era, that was brutal. And they brought people in, to do that. So that was number one. But, then they drafted well. Then they had the Austin Matthews of the world. There's just something. And my theory, actually, as a media member, is the media is the problem. Like, some of those guys, and you can quote me, I will say it to their face, I dislike them so much as people. They are just like, they're worse. We talked about it with Jim, how I said that like the Leafs have this kind of God. I'm like,
complex.
They're, this complex kind of thing. And then brands like different GQ, whatever, they're all over these like young superstars, the Toronto Maple Leafs. So there's this like status thing. But the media has the same problem. Like, some of these writers think that they're, doesn't stink. They've been covering the team for so long. They're bullies. They ask stupid questions. And yes, I am going to say that. They ask stupid questions. And I honestly, my theory is that is one of the issues, is just how, and it's not harsh in like a properly critical way. It's like I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly how to put it, but in covering the Boston Bruins, which get a lot of criticism, like, people are serious over here, and the Jim McBride asks some tough questions, but it's not in this like bully know-it-all way.
It's within context. It's not like a gotcha or clickbait moment.
Yes.
Gotcha.
They're looking for the clickbait. I mean, that can't be the reason the Leafs have struggled this hard, but that's one of my theories. It's just not an easy environment, and It's like an avalanche. Like, once something gets momentum, it drowns you, and if you don't have the backbone, or if you haven't learned, or if you're like a young kid with all the pressure on their shoulders, that's what happens. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's one of my theories. Otherwise, I don't know, girl. I guess we're going to have to just join the crowd and rolling and laughing along. But I feel bad for them. They're people too.
I know. I agree, though. I think that the pressure around the media changes the dynamic there a lot. I do recall a lot of people mentioning how spoiled we were down in Florida with our coverage, just because we would only open so many windows to national media. So everything was just local opinion, local media. And there was just already a dynamic that said, we're not here to do gotchas. We're here to put the human first in the player. And that just kind of created a lot of room and space for there to be, I don't know, a breath of fresh air and not that extra layer of stuff to it. But alongside feeling bad for them, they did give us some really interesting content over the second round of playoffs. I know one of my favorite moments from round 2 was seeing Biz and Caesar go at it on social media, and hats off to Biz for a second for saying that he's going to miss jousting with him, and the way that they just kept chirping at one another when it was like Cats in 7, no Leafs in 7. But the confidence that Leafs fans continue to roll with is just, it's interesting. I don't think I've seen that much undying hope out of a fan base.
Yeah, it's real, and I don't know what else to compare it to, but it's very real. Although there are a lot of people who quickly, after Game 5, are like, "Oh, it's over," or the memes start rolling. I think we're going to roll some things from the interwebs because the Twitter and the memes were kind of going crazy. I don't know if we have it in here, but I'll just talk over it before. Okay, wait, let's see. Leafs finally had a path without the Bruins ruining things. And here, Marchand, that was a big thing too. My friends were like, "Oh, great! Marshy's on the team, we're losing." And he talked on TNT. Did you hear him say belief? We had belief. Yeah.
I love the back and forth between him and Biz as well. Him and Biz and Caesar was probably the most entertainment thus far.
Yeah, no, I love the little side stories. Okay, Marchand is Toronto's Freddie, Jason and Michael Myers all rolled into one. That's tough. Yeah, I mean, it's not like he was dubbed the Leafs killer. It's not like he had 7 goals against them. But yeah, no, yesterday watching him, and I was watching with some people, they were like, this guy, and they're Bruins fans, so they've seen him, but he is older than a lot of those guys out there, faster. Jack Edwards always said it, like a dog on a bone. He is relentless. He's annoying if you're playing against him, and just so relentless. And I just love the energy he brings. But yeah, Leaf killer for sure.
Sorry, these are so good.
I know. You take this one. You go ahead. I've been dominating.
As I say, on the audio side, Maple Leaves in the playoffs every year. And you've got, I can't tell you who this is just in a Maple Leaves uniform, but okay, Joel Embiid. But of course, fans are just relating to or trying to parallel to choking on anything. Do we got any other funny ones?
Trust them. Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, we got Toronto celebrities fighting now. The Bieber curse. Okay, so another context to put here. Drake, who we all know potentially cursed the Maple Leafs heading into Game 7 with his bet on the money line, he put on his Instagram story that Bieber is the curse because Bieber decided to opt out of sitting in a suite last night in his glass front, trying to rally and root on the Maple Leafs, hoping that it would change something. But that's kind of rude. Drake's typically known to be the curse in most things.
I feel like Drake and Bieber, I don't know if they have a song, but anyway, I'd like to see that collab one day. Do they? I'm a big Drake fan, and I like Justin Bieber. I don't think I know of a song with them together, but side note, I hope that's just like a friendly chirp. But yeah, okay, let's talk Biebs a little bit. I guess if you're that popular, you can wear whatever you want. But anyway, odd choice in outfit. And also, glass seats. So I stand by the glass in a corner. Best seat in the house. I love, you feel everything. When there's a body check, it's right there. I'm in the corner behind the goal net. So that's awesome. But you really don't get to see the other side of the ice that much. You're kind of looking up at the Jumbotron when you're down in the corner that low. The behind the bench are the worst seats. All you're seeing is the back of heads of people, the coach and the players. And then you're not really getting much. So I don't know why he picked those seats, and I don't know if he was the curse, but I'm gonna just say, could he not have worn a Leafs jersey instead? What was he wearing? A bucket hat and an orange fur coat?
That's what I was wondering. This is your team. You talk about how diehard you are for them. Your wife is wearing a pretty, casually sick Maple Leafs jacket, and then he's wearing a pink jacket, a fluffy bucket hat. I don't know if it's still that cold in Toronto. I would hope not. And then just like white cargo pants. And I was just like, you could have at least wore your team's colors. Like, that's where I get superstitious, is what I would wear to support my team. And like, I was shocked a little bit to see him rolling in that. But then again, he's just been very out there with his outfit choices as of late.
Yes. Okay, wait. Before we move on to other stories, because we've been talking about this one, but you're superstitious, like outfits or anything else? Because I'm not superstitious at all.
I wasn't superstitious until I started covering hockey. And then with some of the postseason stuff that we had going on in Tampa Bay, it would be like, I have to wear these boots every single game. Like, it really started to get into my head. So I've got like a white pair of cowboy boots. I got them for my birthday. And then all of a sudden it was like game one, oh my gosh, we did amazing. Didn't wear them for the next 2 games, we lost. Then we had like a player come back, wore them again. So in my head, there's a few items of clothing that started to make me superstitious. Yeah.
Did you learn that from any of the players? Like were the guys on the team the Lightning superstitious?
We had a couple guys, but it was more so like the same pair of socks, or like their padding and whatnot. Like, we had 2 guys that had to maintain their padding. They've had it for almost like a decade. So there was a couple of them, but like not to the point where it was just over the top, but yeah.
You know what? Really quick, and then maybe we'll send it to break after this and kind of regroup. But I did a segment where I asked the Bruins what they'd get each other for Christmas. Like, what would you get, so-and-so? And Brandon Carlo, back then when they were teammates, said he's like, I'd get Marchand like new undergear, because apparently whatever Marchand wore was like 14 years old and had holes in it everywhere. And he's like, I'm tired of seeing this butt. Like, he's got holes everywhere. That man
they
needs
have
to
no
sew it
shame.
up. Yeah, he's like, no. He's like, Marsh, he's like, I'm not changing that for you. Like, these are my lucky pair, which, I mean, I'm hoping they're getting washed all the time, but it's just kind of crazy that the gear is not even good. With all the money and all the resources they have, he's wearing like these, I guess, undergear that's on its last thread. But if it works, it works, and everyone has their own. It
makes you
thing.
wonder, is it even safe anymore? But they don't care. I mean, I'm pretty sure they said Sidney Crosby's still wearing the same chest pad from junior. So I'm like, that has to be worn down to like, you feel every hit possible. Yeah. You feel everything. It doesn't even help. But that's my terrifying thing about superstition. Like, I won't go that far into it, but like boots, jewelry, sure.
Any final thoughts on Leafs Panthers before we wrap? We'll send it to break and we'll talk the West when we come back. But any final thoughts, or should we send it away?
I feel like I don't want to add any more salt to belief and so forth. So at least we've got the Panthers moving forward, and that could be positive in terms of what takes place with Marchand and getting that extra pick hopefully. But no, nothing else on that.
Yeah, I mean, real talk though, I did want a Panthers-Carolina series. I just think it's going to be more entertaining. I don't know what about it, but there was something about it that I just thought, I think this is going to be a better game. I think this series is going to go 7, the one coming up. And obviously we'll have to wait and see how game 1 goes. But for now, we're going to send it to break because we've got lots to discuss on the West as well. So we're going to be back on Hockey Hub after this. Welcome back to the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Kasey discussing all things playoff hockey. Glad it's still going on. Lots of different storylines. We just kind of had some laughs with the Leafs Panthers at the expense of the Leafs, which, not trying to make fun of them. I mean, it's just like we said, the memes were out, one of those things. But these are people, and tough for them to swallow yet another loss. The Panthers move on. But we're going to shift our attention to something that's just like devastating, absolutely devastating. Mark Scheifele's father passing away the day before he plays in his final game. And for those of you, of the postseason, of course, for those of you who didn't watch it, that's just devastating enough, absolutely devastating enough. And I know, but he elected to play. I know nobody is really talking about this in terms of teammates or the storyline, but just the way the game ended with Mark Scheifele in the box was, and like, who cares? Like, everyone, he had a goal. He's an amazing teammate. He's been the reason that they've been this good. No one on that team cares at all. But when I was watching it live and I saw that, I was like, oh God, like, please, just for him, let's get out of this, this power, or this penalty kill, excuse me. And Adam Lowry, the captain, in the post press conference, was crying and talking about that, and that's when he got most emotional. And what really stood out to me with this storyline was he didn't say we got to kill this penalty to survive a game just so we can make it into game 7. He was like, we needed to do it for him. We wanted to do it for him. That's all that mattered. It didn't feel like, even if they lost, but they didn't lose while he was in the box, that was more important to them. It wasn't getting the win. It wasn't killing it to, force a game 7. It was for him. And you can see him get so emotional. And and the other side too, the Dallas Stars, super classy, and the handshake line. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of getting emotional thinking about it. What a devastating and hard game for him and his teammates. And what did you make of him playing in that and just that whole storyline?
Yeah, I was totally gutted for him, and it was hard to listen, watch, read any aspect of knowing he was going to play that night and not be emotional about it. I feel like that tends to be a thing that athletes have the capability of doing, just kind of like being able to lean in to something that has been their identity, their life, their lifeline, and a way to connect. A lot of these athletes, that dynamic, that relationship with their father is played a significant role in where they are at and making it to the professional level. So when you're processing news, and it's different for everybody who loses somebody close to them. I know, personally from losing my stepdad, you get that connectivity by doing something that you guys enjoyed together, that's something you guys love together. So maybe that just kind of helped him in that minute, helped him with the processing. And a lot of the players talked about it after the game. He's not even in a position to process this yet, but maybe that made him feel close to his dad still within, all of the news that had taken place. So wasn't too surprised that he decided to play. Yes, it being so close to everything, you maybe wonder if he was going to choose to be with his family at that time, but his mom even said she supported whatever he did. What really broke me was the long hug with Hellebuck after, but what makes you realize how human everyone is and just made you insanely proud of hockey as a whole was the fact that Stars fans, the minute that they heard the news, started donating to both of his charities in Canada. Everybody just started passing out $55 donations, and they ended up raising an insane amount of money, but everyone was just so emotionally tied and tethered to him, supporting him, lifting him up, and just seeing everyone still be so emotional for the post-game pressers. And then it's not confirmed, but supposedly the owner of the Dallas Stars even loaned Scheifele his private jet to make sure that he was able to get back to his family as quickly as possible so that he can start kind of processing everything.
Wow, I didn't hear about the private jet part, but I did hear about the fan donations. And yeah, I love a sports community. I love the hockey community. You guys know I'm a little bit biased towards that only because I'm most familiar with it. But I love that. And you're thinking it's not like it's right across the border either. We're in the conference, Winnipeg, and then you can go down to Minnesota, Chicago, whatever. This is the Dallas Stars, right? And I'm not trying to be funny here, but I don't think before if they were playing the Winnipeg Jets, a lot of people know where Winnipeg is. That's just the truth. If you're from America, and especially a little bit more south, you don't know about Winnipeg because other than a hockey team, there wouldn't be a reason why you would pay attention to that. So I just love how they rallied around him, and I totally agree. I was thinking about it, if something like that happened to me and I had to be on air, I couldn't do it. But on air you talk. And so you don't have a place to really bury your emotions, so to speak, whereas you can kind of bury it into the game. And I also think with the circumstances, the worst thing you want to do is just sit and watch,
yes.
And there's nothing, honestly, I say that there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do. It's not, it wasn't a situation where you could fly home and see, somebody still. There was nothing you can do. And I think sitting and watching your brothers, your family play and compete when XYZ was on the line would just have been torture. So it makes sense that he played. I'm just so sad about how it ended for him, even though no one on the team cares about that, that he was in the box. But I just, you're sitting there alone in the box, and then then it happens. Your team's eliminated, and you have this news about your father and your family. So anyway, I guess we should also say our condolences and our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to the Scheifele family, excuse me. I know him pretty well too. I not well enough to maybe send him a text right now. Going to give him some space, but I've had a lot of time to get to know him over the years as a fellow Canadian, and just I feel like everyone says, like, just the nicest guy. You say that a lot about hockey players, but really is a wonderful person, the family being very close. So gutted for them. And, rest in peace, obviously, and our condolences go out to him. But that's a standout story, Kasey, that as we move on to other things, it's not going to be something that's forgotten this year. I think in playoffs to come, people are going to talk about a moment like that. But with that, the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers. I lost my train of thought. I'm like, who's the other team? The Stars and the Oilers are going to be facing off.
It was a heavy pivot.
Yeah, heavy pivot in the conference finals. Again, two teams I did want to see face each other. What do you make of this matchup? And I'm really excited for this Western final.
I know. I think I'm almost most excited for this one. Nothing against the Panthers and the Hurricanes. We are getting that 2023 rematch. But this one I'm most excited about because I think I've said it here in a number of places. I underestimated some layers to the Edmonton Oilers, but then you've just got so many exciting storylines when it comes to the Dallas Stars. They're a team that's kind of been close but no cigar for the past couple of postseasons, and you feel like they just needed some of these minor tweaks. And you see maturity out of an Ottinger's game and how many big saves he's had, and just a credit to a number of like the incredible saves and just like step up of the goaltenders throughout this postseason. But it's not just what Mikko Rantanen can do, it's what can the Dallas Stars do as a whole. And in my personal opinion, it's can they match up the depth and the layers of scoring that Edmonton just kind of came out with, closing the door on the Vegas Golden Knights. So what you've said has just been stuck in my head since I think the last Hockey Hub or two Hockey Hubs ago, and you were like, there's a pattern out there potentially, and if a team gets knocked out of the Stanley Cup final, then they're kind of going to be back with a vengeance, and we're seeing that from the Edmonton Oilers. So my biggest question mark heading into this, it's not the Rantanen tear or anything else, it's actually, is Ottinger going to be the better goaltender, or is it going to be Stuart Skinner or Pickard on the other end? And if it ends up being Ottinger, then we're finally going to see some progression for the Stars.
Yeah, I mean, I still predict that the Oilers will make it to the final, but if Dallas did, I wouldn't be like, wait, what? Like, that came out of nowhere. Like, I hope it goes 7. I mean, who doesn't want it to go 7? But I hope, and we've seen the way in the first couple of rounds, how Edmonton's had these like crazy back and forth games. The Stars as well have had some crazy outcomes. It's not like everything has been linear. You know what I mean? Like the back and forth has been so fun. So I'm really hoping we get some lead exchanges, some overtimes. I would like to see, unfortunately, that only penalty in the game was that Scheifele tripping call, and then a too many men on the ice for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like a little tamer than what I'm expecting from elimination games. I guess you'd call that discipline on one end, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like that's what the teams want. But I want to see rough stuff. I want to see scrums in front of the net. I want to see, corner battles. I want to see penalties, and I want to see power play. So I'm hoping we get a little bit out of that series.
I think 100% we will. First of all, Jamie Benn has just already started to up the ante in terms of how he's going to piss off the opponents and how far he's going to take things. That's for one. And then for two, you've definitely just got some headhunters on the Oilers team. We know Evander Kane can be a pest. We know Corey Perry can be a pest. He has the nickname the Worm for a number of reasons, not just because of his hockey IQ and play, but because he just gets under everybody's skin. And then also, I want to see what gear we see out of Connor McDavid. He's starting to be a little bit more vocal with what he doesn't like towards media members. I thought it was pretty interesting when he kind of snapped back to the reporter saying, we do play defense. I'm tired of everyone asking these questions. He knew it was going to come, which means they're going to go into this and show that they can play an extra layer of defense. So I feel like we are going to get more snarl out of this one. Not to mention is that Granlund can be physical. A number of the defensive players for the Dallas Stars can be physical. So there's going to be those extra shoves and that extra layer of just we want it more.
Honestly, I don't mind his little pushback. I hope that never happens to me, but sometimes you do find yourself trying to stretch a storyline that's been talked about. I didn't mind the pushback, sticking up for his team. And yeah, it gets annoying. If you think Connor McDavid, he's been in scrums that are 30 people deep since he was drafted. So,
right.
He's probably all right, I'm done with this narrative. And I like the little pushback there. Okay, we can keep going, but I'm being told we got to go to break again. So we're going to send it to break and wrap up the show on the other side. We'll see you then. All right, welcome back to the Hockey Hub. A couple of former Bruins still in postseason contention. Trent Frederick being one of them, and of course Brad Marchand being the other. What did I just say? Did I just say cup contention or something else? I think I just blacked out on what I said, but I hope I made. I hope I made sense there.
A couple of Bruins still in the running for the cup. You said it.
Oh, I did say it. Okay,
yes.
I was like, did I just make sense there? Trent Frederick. I don't think, Kasey, you had a chance to meet him. Maybe you did, but one of the most, even though in the media he's kind of quiet, soft-spoken, lovable people. So rooting for him for now, and then Brad Marchand rooting on that side for Brad and the Florida Panthers for now. And then if they face each other, it'll be a tough decision. But we only have a couple minutes left on the show. Anything you're looking forward to in this Panthers-Canes series before we wrap up and say goodbye?
Yeah, the Hurricanes were getting a lot of heat for being boring versus the Capitals. So my thing is, I just, like you asked for Stars versus Oilers, right? I just want to be entertained as well as. So I'm hoping, but again, the Panthers can probably bring that out of any team. It's going to be interesting to see how they function versus a team that's so offensively capable, and where, again, goaltending is going to lie in the matchup of all of this. So I just keep getting visuals of May 2023. I don't feel like the Hurricanes were expecting the physicality. I don't think that they were expecting to be just so overwhelmed by the Panthers, and it feels like they have that and another gear in them. So I just want to be entertained. I want the Hurricanes to be entertaining to their fan base. That's my ask.
It's so funny because I was just thinking about this as well, and it's like I said, was not entertained in Game 7. We want to see some good hockey. But could you imagine, do you think those guys are going in there winning games like they are, and they stand up and guys, we're a little boring. We gotta, we gotta do better because we're getting blown up on social media. This is tough. We're boring. We're winning, but maybe let's change it up because we're kind of boring. They don't give a crap. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry that our style of play is boring. We're gonna keep winning. I'm sure that's not on their priority list, but agreed that I would like to see a little bit more chippiness and
I feel like their social team they'll have it. Their social team not boring.
Yeah.
The team boring, but maybe at the end the social media team would be like, haha, at least we won. If that's the case.
Or as Pete Blackburn said, boring or just good. You know what I mean? So
very true.
Yeah. All right, well, we got 20 seconds left, so we're going to say goodbye. We'll talk Wednesday. We'll at least have a game that we can preview and then one in the books. But that's it for us, for Kasey and myself. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on Wednesday on all the NESN socials and NESN Nation on the Hub.